Heightened security measures are in place across the country ahead of President-elect Biden's inauguration this Wednesday. The U.S. government officials are saying that the greatest threat to the inauguration is domestic violent extremists. In the nation's capital, businesses are boarding up, the National Mall is shut down, and the Pentagon has called in 25,000 troops. This map of road closures in D.C. gives you an idea of how tight security is around the Capitol and White House. You can see almost every street near there is closed. The FBI is warning of possible armed protests at all 50 state capitals. This comes as nearly 300 suspects have been identified in connection with the assault on the Capitol. CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killion is at the White House with more on this final weekend of the Trump presidency.
Washington drawing comparisons to a war zone, walled off with barbed wire, barricades, and blockades of National Guard troops at the ready. As disturbing new details emerge about the January 6th insurrection. When rioters stormed the Capitol,
protesters are in the building.
Vice President Mike Pence waited nearly 14 minutes in the Senate chamber after the initial security breach, giving the angry intruders time to get closer to his location, some calling him a traitor and chanting for him to be hanged. The rioters were less than 100 feet from where the vice president and his family were hiding before the Secret Service evacuated them to safety. In court filings late this week, investigators say Jacob Chansley, dubbed the QAnon shaman, espoused identifying and hanging leaders he viewed as traitors within the United States government, and that Chansley left a note for Mr. Pence on the Senate dais. It's only a matter of time. Justice is coming. On Friday, D.C.'s acting U.S. Attorney Michael Sherwin said there is no direct evidence teams of rioters were looking to capture or kill during the assault, but investigations are ongoing.
That is a Tier 1 top priority for both the U.S. Attorney's Office and our federal law enforcement partners to see, again, whether there was this overarching command and control and whether there were these organized teams that were organized to breach the Capitol and then perhaps try to accomplish some type of a mission inside the Capitol.
The Capitol Police also opened a probe into whether some members of Congress helped the protesters plan their assault. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi named retired Lieutenant General Russell Honore, who led the military response to Hurricane Katrina, to conduct an immediate review.
There is strong interest in the Congress in a 9/11 type commission, an outside commission, to conduct that after-action review. In the meantime, I'm very grateful to General Honore.
Nikole Killion joins us now from the White House. Nikole, what can we expect to see this weekend? How many protesters are officials actually expecting there in Washington?
You know, it's really unclear, and keep in mind it's just not limited to Washington. There was a threat for the potential for armed protest in state capitals across the country, so that's why not just here, but, you know, a number of state capitals across the country, you see them being boarded up. Certainly security here in Washington goes well beyond that. I mean, there are businesses that are boarded up. Sections of the city are virtually cordoned off at this point. And as we mentioned in the piece, of course, you also have National Guard troops here as well, up to 25,000 who could be activated.
Security measures are being taken in Washington and across the country for Wednesday's inauguration. What exactly is being done, and how concerned are officials at this point about the threats?
Well, look, I think the threat remains high. Otherwise, we wouldn't see these security protocols taking place. Certainly, it's something unlike anything I have ever seen in, preparing for coverage of an inauguration. As I mentioned, here in Washington, the city is virtually shut down. You have red zones and green zones that have been set up through Secret Service, areas where pedestrian foot traffic is only allowed in certain portions of the city, and where vehicle traffic is restricted in other parts. So really movement here in the city is very limited for anyone who is familiar with the nation's capital. For instance, the National Mall is completely shut down. As you know, I'm sure, Lon, I mean, that's a major tourist destination. Obviously, it's a major gathering place during the inauguration. So really unusual to see so many barricades set up in and around the city. But of course, in light of what happened almost 2 weeks ago, certainly authorities not leaving anything to chance.
Yeah, the Washington Post is reporting that an internal intelligence report to Capitol Police warned that the president's supporters could target Congress with violence. What more do we know about any other potential warnings?
Well, with respect to that particular intelligence report, that just came out 3 days prior to the riot and in essence suggested that Congress itself could be targeted by some of the president's supporters. And according to the Post, that memo was not widely shared with other law enforcement officials. Now, it's unclear why. Capitol Police did not comment, but certainly this is not the only warning that seems to have been raised prior to the events of January 6th. And so that's why a number of investigations have since been launched, not only by the Capitol Police, but also you heard Nancy Pelosi in the piece calling for a security review. That's why she named former retired Lieutenant General Russell Honore to that post to conduct a security review. You also have a number of federal agencies that have their own inspectors general who are looking into this, in addition to the criminal investigation. So certainly a lot of probes underway to try to get to the bottom of what happened and why.
Nikole, I was just looking at my inauguration press credentials for the last couple of inaugurations with Presidents Obama and President Trump. And we knew anyway that this inauguration was going to look different because of the coronavirus pandemic. But now, given all of these security concerns, what can we actually expect to see on Wednesday?
Well, perhaps the biggest thing is there won't be any crowds, and that is by design. And even before the events of January 6th, the Biden transition had made clear that they did not want people to come to the nation's capital because of the escalating pandemic. They didn't want to run the risk of people risking their health just to be here in this moment. And so most of their programming will be virtual for this inauguration. For instance, along the National Mall, even though it's closed down, they are erecting an art installation, a field of flags to represent all the people who cannot attend. Also, even in terms of the ceremony at the west front of the Capitol, members of Congress will be allowed to attend, but they will only be allowed to bring one guest. So tickets are being limited. And then, of course, the big event du jour, besides the swearing in, of course, is the inaugural parade. Most of that will be virtual as well. And then the evening of the inauguration will conclude with a special primetime program featuring a number of celebrities, folks like Tom Hanks, Eva Longoria, and others. So really the message to folks is to stay away, stay at home, and that is in essence what you will see besides, the VIPs and dignitaries who will be at the ceremony Wednesday.
Nikole, the other thing that we won't be seeing is that iconic drive down Pennsylvania Avenue from the White House to the Capitol with the outgoing president, the incoming president. Obviously, this is the last weekend before Donald Trump leaves his role as president of the United States. And as the White House is preparing for the incoming administration, we've been seeing crews moving things out this week, as well as staff packing up and leaving. Give us a sense of what's happening there at the White House right now.
Yeah, it is very quiet around here, Lana, in a way that we also haven't seen, in the sense that really a lot of staff at this point have left. And so, you don't see aides necessarily walking around or in, the offices that are accessible to press. Most of them at this point are gone. We do know that the president, for the most part, in these final days is, entertaining visitors, that he is spending time with some of his close aides, some family members. Of course, on Friday, we learned that MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell visited the White House, who is a conservative donor, but also has embraced some of these conspiracy theories around the election. So that's to give a sense of what the president has been doing. He's been largely staying out of view for the most part. So again, things very quiet here, Lana.
All right, Nikole, thank you.
You bet.